The lesser-known fact is that of the 45 men who have served as President of the United States, only one, George Washington, had been a career general before becoming a politician. The misconception is that military leadership translates directly to political leadership. In reality, the skills that make a great general, obedience, decisive action, vertical command, are almost the opposite of what makes a great politician. The overlooked consequence is that when generals enter politics, they rarely fail because they're too aggressive. They fail because they cannot tolerate the slow, messy, democratic process of building coalitions. And that discomfort with politics as usual is exactly what voters think they want, until they discover that governing requires the very skills their hero general never developed. Let's start with an overlooked decision. After the Civil War, Grant entered the presidency with zero political experience, having never held elected office or even voted in a presidential election before running for it himself. Grant famously appointed his staff the way he appointed his army. He chose men he trusted personally, not men who understood tariff policy or diplomatic protocol. The human limit here is that Grant had spent his entire adult life giving orders that were obeyed instantly. He had no practice in persuasion, no tolerance for legislative delay, and no instinct for the horse trading that makes democracy function. His 2 terms produced some genuine achievements: the 15th Amendment, the Justice Department, but they were also marred by scandals so extensive that the word Grantism entered the dictionary as a synonym for cronyism. Now fast forward to 1920. Pershing was the most respected American general since Grant. Both parties begged him to run. He refused. Pershing understood something that Grant did not: the chain of command points one direction. The ballot box points in every direction simultaneously. MacArthur did not understand this. After Truman fired him in 1951 for insubordination in Korea, MacArthur returned home to a hero's welcome and immediately launched a presidential campaign. The dry, wry observation is that MacArthur's campaign failed not because of his policies, but because he could not stop lecturing voters like they were his junior officers. He won only 10 delegates. Eisenhower, who had spent the previous year learning to shake hands and kiss babies, won the nomination and then the presidency. Eisenhower had one advantage over other generals turned politicians. He had spent 5 years as Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, which was less a military job than a diplomatic one. He had already learned how to manage French, British, and American egos simultaneously. Clark ran for the Democratic nomination in 2004. He had a brilliant military record: Rhodes Scholar, 4-star general, Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. He finished 4th in Iowa and 3rd in New Hampshire, then dropped out. Petraeus was widely expected to run for president after his CIA tenure. Then a scandal involving his biographer ended his political career before it began. But even without the scandal, insiders doubted he had the stomach for retail politics. Mattis was asked over and over about whether he would ever run for president. His answer was always the same: dry and honestly pretty blunt. He said, "I have no patience for people who can't make a decision." That is most of politics. There's a bigger lesson here, about conflict in general. In the military, decisiveness is rewarded because, the enemy won't wait around for you to make up your mind. But in politics, decisiveness is usually punished because, let's face it, any decision is going to upset about half the voters. The irony here is that often the most effective wartime leaders aren't generals at all. Think about Zelensky, Churchill, Lincoln. None of them had any real military command experience. What they did have was the ability to speak to a democratic public, to actually build coalitions across all kinds of factions, and to tolerate the slow, grinding process of political survival. The question, and then what? That's not something generals are really trained to ask. They're trained to achieve the objective, period. Politicians, on the other hand, are trained to ask, what happens the day after? That man you see is probably a veteran. He probably respects generals. But when he steps into the voting booth, he's not looking for a commander-in-chief who just commands. He's looking for someone who actually governs. The general wants a clear order and the resources to carry it out. The politician wants to know how it's going to play in, say, the suburbs of Philadelphia. Neither of them is wrong. But honestly, neither one really knows how to do the other's job. Look, the lesson here isn't that generals are bad people. It's that military competence and political competence are two totally different skills, and honestly, no single person has unlimited talent. So, if you value history that goes a little deeper, subscribe to War Machiner and share this with someone who might appreciate it. The best generals never run. The best presidents rarely served. In a democracy, the hardest battlefield is the one where everyone gets to shoot back.